But can it go up to commissioners?
And I'm gonna turn off my mic and my camera because I'll be hopping out about 7:15, but I'm here if you need anything.
We got Jill Warren in the attendees side.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk. Good evening, CCI folks. In case you haven't heard, Bruce is downtown Hillsborough Zoom casting from the CDC assessment meeting. We are recording the meeting. When the presentation begins, it's probably best if we don't talk, but if he is able, he may continue the meeting after the presentation. So it's going to be a pretty passive session here.
Yeah, so unless everybody leaves, I'm going to need to take my laptop to another room.
Yeah.
So our conversation doesn't.
Right. So we can chat amongst ourselves while Bruce moves, and there you go.
CCI people. Oh, Mary.
Yeah, I had to go testify. I did. I
really appreciate it.
You were
at some point, Bruce, it'd be good to let us know.
Are you able? Oh, are they going to turn the lights off in the room or something? Because the slide is just very pale.
Well, this camera unfortunately does not pick up slides very well.
I know. I was thinking either you could zoom right in on that or have them turn out the light.
I'm zoomed in about as far as I can go.
That's fine. If they, turn out the lights, maybe.
Well, yeah, but the
you know, my being about is what happens when
Bruce, at some point, would you let us know who's in the room? Presenters and or the attendees?
The other two.
Yes. There's them. There's Mary, Teresa. There's Mary. There's some crowd. There's this.
To me, that yes.
We're gonna.
Okay.
So thank you all for coming tonight to the open house for the Washington County Community Development Code Assessment Project. I'm Suzanne Savin. I'm a senior planner and I'm acting as the project manager on behalf of the county. County staff that are also helping with this project that are here tonight. We've got Teresa, Ann, and Cassie, and so you'll know county staff because we'll either be wearing one of these lovely lanyards or one of these lovely name tags, or sometimes both of those things. We also have been assisted with this project by a consultant team, Cascadia Partners, and 3 of the members of that team are also here tonight and can answer questions. So we've got Lydia, Damon, and Mary here tonight, and they also are wearing their own white name tags. So I'm going to give a short overview, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lydia to handle some of the other slides in this PowerPoint. So in terms of why we're here tonight, this presentation that I'm about to give and Lydia is about to give is going to provide a quick overview of our Community Development Code, and we call it the CDC for short. And there are 7 topic stations around the room on these posters. Each of them addresses a specific issue, and we're going to touch lightly on that issue in the presentation, and we can look at the posters after the presentation to get more details. And so your role tonight will be to browse the poster boards and weigh in on what matters to you. There's going to be places for you to vote with dots about whether something's important or not important to you. And also there is going to be some places for you to write whatever comments come into your mind about that. At the end of this presentation, there's going to be a question and answer period. So kind of think about what questions you might have, and we'd be glad to take those during the Q&A period. So I want to give a little bit of background on the Community Development Code first, because I'm not sure if everyone in the room has had experience with this document. We have a copy of the document over in the far table in the room, and if you take a look at it, you'll see it's very large. It's the size of a phone book, and it weighs more than 6 pounds now. We developed that document back in the early 80s, and we have amended it over time. We've taken some things out and added some things, but we've never done a comprehensive look at the whole document until now. We know we're way overdue to do that. So the purpose of this CDC assessment is to take a comprehensive look and see if this Community Development Code is still working, given the changes that have happened since from the 80s to now. Is it still a document that works? And it's a rule book for land use in counties, so it's pretty important. And it governs how the land in the county is used, what can be built, and what things that what they're required to look like. So it has effects on property owners and community members, neighbors, developers, basically anybody that lives or works in the county. So I'll cover this slide and then I'll hand it over to you, Lydia. So when we've looked through this Community Development Code, we looked at 3 key areas. One of them is whether the CDC is up to date with recent Oregon laws, whether it's up to date with legal compliance. There have been many recent Oregon laws regarding housing and childcare and other issues. So we're looking at the CDC to see if it complies with those. The other main area that we're looking at is to identify where the CDC requirements might make housing more difficult to build. So we'd like to remove barriers where they might exist. And then lastly, we're looking at the Community Development Code to make it easier to use by community members, and also frankly make it easier to use by staff, because with as large of a document as it is, it's even sometimes difficult for staff to use. And we like to streamline it, make it maybe less than 6 pounds at some point, and have it be something that is more easy to comprehend by everyone that has to use it. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lydia to cover the next couple of slides about some of the points.
All right, so here we go, a little bit more diving into these topic stations. So there are seven topic stations, each covering a specific finding from the assessment that was conducted that Suzanne talked about. And station 8 is where you can share your kind of top 2 most important issues from these 7 findings. And as Suzanne mentioned, station 7 is a little bit different. So the others, you'll be able to vote with dot stickers and provide your comments and questions. But station 7 is more of an informational. It's about those state laws. Give you a sense of kind of what does the CDC need to be amended to kind of keep up and align with state law. So I will be diving into these different stations briefly. There's obviously a lot of information on these boards, but wanted to make sure you have the context and can have a little bit more understanding before we break and you're able to dive in a little bit more. Okay, so the first station here is we're calling it leveling the playing field. So one of those state laws in Oregon, it requires certain cities and counties to allow for what's called middle housing. And middle housing includes duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhouses, and cottage clusters. So an array of housing types. And those housing types can't be treated any more strictly than a single family or a single unit home. But Washington County also has similar housing types. And those also include things like duplexes and townhouses that were in the code before the state passed this law. But those similar housing types faced some stricter requirements. So you might ask, if they're similar, why are there two? Why are there both middle housing and similar housing types? And the answer is flexibility. So a builder might choose one type over the other, depending on the project and the lot. It might be easier to do a similar housing type than a little bit more stricter of a middle housing. And so to kind of help with that and make things a bit easier kind of across the board, our findings include that there's a lower density allowance for these similar housing types, there's stricter design standards, and there's a more intensive approval process. So really there's an opportunity to level the playing field, reduce unnecessary differences between these housing types. So builders have more flexibility and the CDC is a little bit more consistent in how it treats these housing types. All right, the second one here is about multi-unit. So think about the apartment buildings and aligning those with the county's housing goals. So these zones were planned for higher density multifamily housing. Typically they're near transit or other amenities. And so there's a couple issues with that kind of have barriers to developing these housings. So one issue is density limits. So they can be complex and it can be based on proximity. So whether a project is a higher or lower density, so how many units can be built, is dependent on how close it is to transit. But if the intent of these zones is to have denser housing, why not kind of make that similar across these different districts? And the next here is space constraints. So sometimes a building can fit the number of units that are allowed in this district, but between things like lot coverage and setbacks and landscaping, it can require buildings to build up, to get taller, which can be more expensive. And so this is kind of analyzing ways to reduce those costs to make housing more affordable. So as an example, a 3-story building might be able to achieve the same density, like I mentioned, as a 4-story building, but at a significantly lower construction cost. So kind of as buildings get taller, they get more expensive. But these current standards can kind of push you towards that more expensive option. So trying to assess ways to reduce those costs and allow for variation in kind of the height of buildings. And this dives into that a little bit more, so you can see that visually. So the top two talk about lot coverage. So that is kind of how much of the building can take up space on the lot. So if you're trying to build at a higher density, your lot coverage actually gets reduced. So that pushes the building up. And so as I mentioned, that can get more expensive. So you can see here on the left, number one, it's 48 units, 50% lot coverage, so more space that it can take up on the lot. And then on the right, you can see it's 80 units, and that lot coverage reduces down to 35%. So the building has to gain. And then on the open that door wider for more projects. First, is allowing a building where only a portion are income restricted, rather than all of them. So a developer could have market rate as well, to kind of offset those costs. And then the second is increasing that income level so that it can also kind of pencil and make work from 80% up higher, which is area median income is kind of as it suggests, it's a geographic area, and it's there's certain incomes that are kind of the median of that community. So the goal isn't to give away this incentive, it's to structure it so that more developers can realistically participate, which could hopefully result in more affordable units being produced over time. Okay, station 4 is on neighborhood meeting requirements. So right now, most housing project applicants in Washington County are required to hold a neighborhood meeting before they can submit an application. And that's a broader requirement than most nearby cities. So Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Forest Grove all limit neighborhood meetings to larger or more complex projects that would have a bigger impact on the community and neighborhood. So the concern really here is that the current requirement applies to even small, more straightforward projects. And then that process can introduce some uncertainty. So feedback raised at neighborhood meetings can shape conditions of approval, even for projects that otherwise would meet objective standards. So the unpredictability adds risk and cost, and that is more impactful when it's a smaller project that maybe is a couple of units. So the finding here is really about targeting, focusing the requirement on projects where early community input is very meaningful, on larger project size or intensity of that project or a certain type. So we're not saying that neighborhood meetings should be removed by any means, or notice requirements are changing, but this is really kind of calibrating it to those larger projects that have bigger impact on the neighborhood. Okay, and then the last here, these 3 stations are grouped as in here. It's a bit of less information, but more of an overview. So I'll move through them a little bit quicker. Station 5 is about streamlining the code. You heard Susan talk about how thick the code is, and therefore its complexity with that. And so these are thinking about ways to streamline and simplify it. So there are definitions and certain requirements that are kind of scattered throughout. So can we make those into certain, one section that's easier to find and use, tables and more visual, so you can kind of see what the intent of the code is trying to do. Station 6 is on housing opportunities in mixed-use areas. So many of these areas are also near transit and services, and have rules that make it a bit harder to develop housing. So those things include ground floor commercial requirements that sometimes don't allow housing on that ground floor. They have lower density caps, 15 units an acre at sometimes, and additional approval hurdles. And the county is actually already working to address this. So knowing that this is important and there are already barriers, the county has already started to take this on. And then the last one I touched on earlier is, keeping up with state law. So really, this is kind of showing you where the county is already starting to address these requirements and where they're planned. So it's less about input and more informational for you all to understand those requirements. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Suzanne.
Thank you, Lydia. So I've got the last 3 slides. So this is just a recap of your role tonight after we're done with the presentation. Is that browse the boards throughout the room. We've got the English language boards along this wall back through here, and then we've got Spanish language boards of the same content along the back wall and that side wall. And we've got some places on various of these stations where we're asking you to give us your assessment of how important this particular issue is to you personally by rating it with we've got some dot stickers if it's very important to you, all the way to not at all important, all the way to unsure. And there's also some boards where we're asking if you have any specific continents of any type that you can you can write them on there for us to consider. We are gonna have a question and answer period at the end of this presentation, and then later, when you're browsing the boards, we're gonna have staff members throughout the room, so feel free to ask more questions as you're looking at posters. I wanted to give also a little background about where this project is and in terms of the timing and what happens next. So in terms of what has already happened, this project, we started, county staff and our consultants that are assisting us started reviewing the code back in starting April, May of last year. And it's taken a long time to get through that pretty thick document and document all the issues that we found. We have a technical advisory committee that is that we're checking in with at 4 points throughout the process, and that technical advisory committee is made up of people that represent affordable housing groups, that represent community representatives, represent developers and service agencies, and the staff of other county departments like engineering. And so we're going to be, we've already had 3 meetings with the technical advisory committee as we've sort of shared things that we found along the way as we were reviewing the CDC. And so right now we're at this point here with this green square, that's tonight's open house. And there's a green star following that, which is the next technical advisory committee meeting that'll be in April. We actually have not calendared the date for that yet. I'm about to poll the TAC members and see when they might be available in April to meet. And then that blue diamond is where we're going to check in with our Board of Commissioners and share with them sort of what we've found as we've gone through the Community Development Code and get input from them. And then that last diamond under May is going back to our Planning Commission. We've also had a couple of briefings with them over the last year and get their input. So we're getting input from a variety of sources, and it's really important for us to get input from you tonight. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of these other rows here. So the consultants have written a CDC assessment summary report where they have summarized broadly the issues that they found when they went through our community development code. And the report has an appendix, Appendix A, that almost goes like code section by code section throughout the entire code and talks about issues found, what type of issue is it? Is it a barrier to housing, or is it a streamlining thing that we could make simpler? And it'll have a suggestion for maybe a way to approach that, a very high level suggestion. So that document, the consultants have a copy of that here if you kind of want to look through it, but it's also on our webpage, and I'll give you the address of our webpage before the presentation ends, so you can, skim it from home. And so the document that our consultants are starting to work on next is going to be a CDC priorities report. So what that's going to be is, they've identified some issues with the CDC assessment report, and the priorities report is going to be their recommendations to county staff about which of those issues should we queue up and work on first versus which issues can maybe wait till later. Because there are so many issues that there's no way we can do, there's no way we can revamp the code all at once and fix all of those issues. It's just too big for that. So we're going to have to divide our fixes up over time. And so this priorities report is going to give county staffs ideas about how best to prioritize the various issues that we have identified. So just kind of wanted to reiterate that we're hoping to get feedback from you through either the Q&A or, chats after the presentation and, ratings on these boards and your thoughts. And we're going to be taking that feedback and looking very carefully at it together with the feedback that we've gotten from our Planning Commission and that we have gotten and will get from our Technical Advisory Committee and the Board of Commissioners to help us kind of know, where to go next, what things to focus on next with the CDC assessment. And I think the other thing I wanted to make clear, and I'm not sure I made it clear when I started the presentation, is that this is an assessment, so it's sort of like trying to diagnose something. We're not actually making the changes themselves as part of this project. We're just gathering the list of the issues so that we know what we do have to do. It's like a laundry list of what do we have to fix. So, so later, with the help of that, priorities report and with the help of feedback that we're getting from these sources, including you all and our planning commission and technical advisory committee and board, it's going to tell them, or it's going to tell us, which of these things do we need to actually start changing? And the change process is a separate process called an ordinance, and we'll probably have to do separate. It's the code. I just want to make it clear that what we're doing now is kind of a diagnostics of the code, and then later we're going to follow that up with the actual changes to it. So with that, I'm gonna open it up to maybe questions and answers. If anybody has questions about the project or things that you wanted to ask. And so, Mary.
So, you talked about using the dots for priorities on the various, the various boards. What if you think the proposal is absolutely going the wrong direction?
I guess there would be two things I would say if that was your view of, like, let's say station 2, if that was your view of station 2. I might say if I was somebody that thought that, I might put a not at all important, because maybe you think it's even beyond that, I know.
It is beyond that,
Yeah,
so.
But it gives us, I mean, we have these categories, so that's the first point. I might put not at all important, because I don't think these other ones would fit. It's not like you're unsure, you're sure.
Yeah,
And it's not like you think it's very important or important. So I think this would be your starting point. But then what I think would be important is, obviously, if you feel that way, you have reasons, right? You have reasons like, I don't think this is the right direction because of X, Y, and Z. And we'd want to hear those reasons. So we'd want you on these whiteboards that follow most of these stations, we'd want you to put like, I don't think this should happen because.
But station 2 doesn't have that whiteboard.
It's behind the.
Oh,
It's
okay.
behind the screen,
Okay.
yeah, I think they pretty much all do, so,
Okay.
so we'd want the details about, like, if you think this is the wrong direction, we'd want the details about why that is.
Thank you.
Yes,
Which agency gives final approval, assuming there's gonna be changes to the CDC? Is that gonna be the planning commission or the board of county commissioners?
it ultimately, I'll back up a little bit. Any proposal to change the community development code would have to be done by a process called an ordinance. And so, the ordinance process is very prescribed. It has to always go the same way. And it involves at least one hearing in front of the planning commission. The planning commission provides a recommendation. They don't provide the decision. So they provide a recommendation to the board of county commissioners. And then the board, there'll be at least one hearing before the board, and they are the decision makers about an ordinance.
Okay, the reason I ask is, so your timeline there, it appears that it goes to board of county commissioners, then the planning commission for final approval, but I'm assuming that the blue and the black diamond there should be reversed. In other words, it's the board of county commissioners that would essentially form the form and approve any ordinance changes to the CDC.
Well, I think what's maybe confusing about this is this process that we're in right now is not an ordinance.
Right.
We're just diagnosing, we're sort of doing a diagnostics on the code. So, so this is the process that we use to do the diagnosis. So it's not an ordinance. So we first checked in with our technical advisory committee, then we checked in with the planning commission. We're kind of working our way up, like, do you think this is okay? Do you think this is okay? Do you think this is okay? And so, so it's a little bit different of a process than the ordinance will use. The ordinance will start with the planning commission and end with the board. It won't go back to the planning commission after that.
Right.
So this is not an ordinance itself.
Understood.
Okay. Yes.
This process appears to really focus mostly on housing and, like you said, childcare, other things, urban, maybe urban unincorporated, but urban focused. And I don't see it focusing so much that first poster talks about preserving farmland or have agri land.
Right.
And so how does that get incorporated into the code? I'm sure it exists there, but is that any part of this discussion this evening?
Well, I guess it is and it isn't. I mean, obviously, a large part of the county is rural, it's outside the UGB. And our community development code, has a lot of sections that deal with, the development regulations that apply outside of the urban growth boundary. There's not as, we think there are opportunities to make perhaps streamline or make those regulations maybe easier to comprehend by replacing maybe long lists of land uses with maybe a table showing land uses that are allowed in more of a table form, and maybe showing the different districts, like what's allowed in each district, maybe together in one table instead of parsing them out. But there's probably less ability to change the regulations that apply outside the urban growth boundary, to actually change land use allowances, because a lot of those are set by the state of Oregon. So they're sort of they're set by the state and not by the county, but the county has to abide by these state regulations. So there's less room for us to be creative about the regulations that apply outside the urban growth boundary, because the state of Oregon has some prescriptions for that the county has to adhere to.
And I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. I really, really do. So I kind of had a question about solar panel farms. And how did that ever become something that's an agriculture commodity on exclusive farm use zone?
That is something that I don't know the answer to. I know just enough to know that there's a lot of differing opinions about that, but I have no real context about that, unfortunately.
So we don't know if it's something that can be input collected through this process, or if that's a state mandate.
Well, if I'll just say this, and this is going to show you how much I don't know about that topic, is that if you're talking about a solar farm that might be allowed on exclusive farm use property, and I see that's what I don't even know, but the exclusive farm use land use designation is something that where the county has to very much kind of fall in lockstep with whatever the state allows. So, you know, if what you're talking about is a property that has an EFU or an AF20 designation, the land uses that are allowed on that property are pretty much set by the state, by the Oregon revised statutes. So it might be, again, if that is what you're talking about, it might be a question maybe perhaps more for the state about how that came to be an allowed use, because it's probably an allowed use at the state level. And you know, the county is sort of like the tail, we're not the dog. So in that case, so probably a bad analogy, but
And I have a question that kind of tags in onto that. We were talking earlier about the state has passed a lot of new codes that we need to implement. So when we mention the state, are we talking a governing body that's of elected officials that's approving this? Or are we talking about a department with staff, you know, LCDC or whoever that comes up with it and says, oh, now we're approving this, and so now the county has to do it? Who exactly?
it would be either LCDC or DLCD. So it sounds like you're familiar enough to, and Teresa.
I meant to say, so the state legislature approves new laws. They adopt statutes. Sometimes those need some interpretation, or they say to a state agency, we need you to do rules for how this needs to be implemented. And so it's either state legislation, or usually in our case for land use, it'll be the Department of Conservation and Development and their commission, the Land Conservation and Development Commission, that will develop those rules. There'll be a whole rulemaking committee. I know various people have served on those, we have, and those will get adopted by that commission. And then those are essentially laws that we have to follow. So we're implementing both of those.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, before I get back to you, Chris, I think, Jim, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask, kind of going back, and maybe you covered it very quickly at the beginning. history of these codes? When did they start? Did they start 80 years ago, or when land use laws started coming in, or, and how have they been, have they always gone through this ordinance process to get into the code book?
Yeah, I mean, the development code that we're reviewing now, it took its current form back in, I think, 1983. Before that version of the code, there were earlier versions of the development code that were somewhat different because the county had different land use districts back prior to 83. So if you were, and we do have copies of those vintage codes. The code was quite a bit smaller because there were very few land use districts. And so what we've been dealing with, what we're dealing with currently is reviewing a code that's dated back to 1983. All I can say about the earlier codes is they were a lot smaller, mainly because we had very fewer land use districts. I think some of them are available to look at our counter if you're ever curious about what those prior versions looked like.
And then are there any incentives to protect land? I mean, to build up instead of building out?
Well, I think that's one of the things we're looking at. We're actually finding some barriers in some cases to building up too. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as we're trying to figure out how to promote higher density residential development in the districts where it's ostensibly allowed. We're finding that we have different regulations that overlap with each other in such a way that even if a district is supposed to allow higher density residential development, it would be really hard in practice for a developer to actually create something that met all the different regulations. So that's something that you'll see if you kind of skim the CDC assessment summary report and look in that Appendix A, you'll see some of that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just whether you build up or out, I think you're gonna get some opposition either way you go, right? But to go to this young lady's question, I think Metro also has some jurisdictional oversight over some of the things that happen here in what we're talking about today. But my question kind of goes the other way because there are several municipalities within Washington County, City of Beaverton, City of Hillsborough, City of Forest Grove, City of Tigard, City of Sherwood. How are you going to ensure that any changes that are proposed here in the CDC at the county level get implemented into the local municipal codes of those individual cities?
We won't, because each of the codes operate independently. So once you go into the City of Beaverton, or property within the City of Beaverton is subject to the City of Beaverton's development code. So they're all distinct. They're distinct codes. I mean, I think the one thing that county staff are getting from doing the CDC assessment is we're looking around too and comparing in some ways our CDC with some of the city's CDCs. I think in some ways our CDC might be better and some it's worse. One way that I think our CDC could maybe take a page out of some of the city's community development codes is just in the formatting of it. And so I'm going to give an example, not in what's allowed, but just how the code is actually formatted. If you were to look online at the City of Beaverton's community development code, you'd see something that to me looks visually easier to comprehend if I was just paging through. If I was somebody that was a business owner and I'm trying to figure out which district in the City of Beaverton would allow me to put a hair salon in, I could figure that out more quickly looking at the City of Beaverton's development code than I could for the same question looking at the county's code, because what the city has done is they have created a table in their code where they have listed every single one of their commercial land use districts, and then they've on the top, and then on the sides, they've listed many different commercial land uses. So if you're going to do a hair salon, you could go through the table. Oh, I could do it in this district, and this district, and this district. We don't do that in our code. Our code has these long lists. So it's just not as easy, I think, to see sort of at a glance what's possible to do or what's not possible to do as it is in some of the other jurisdictions codes that we're looking at that have been updated more recently than ours.
Yeah, and from a developer's perspective, that alignment is important because obviously if you have to comply with, the city code, but then the county code is significantly different, you end up with this sort of juxtaposition, like which code is gonna override in which particular
Yeah,
area,
they don't layer on top of each other. So if you were, if your property is in the urban unincorporated county, if it's not in a city, it's gonna be subject only to the county's development code. It won't be subject to Beaverton's or any of the city's codes. And Teresa, did you want to say something?
That's what I wanted to clarify, that the county's jurisdiction and land use is the unincorporated area. So all the area outside of cities. That's where we have land use jurisdiction, that's where a code applies. And within cities, they have land use jurisdiction and their code applies. So there is no overlap. You are correct, though, that Metro does have an urban growth management functional plan. They have their own set of regulations that govern some of the things that we do and how we do them. And we do consider those as we develop our regulations.
Are there any additional questions? I've seen another question.
Thank you, Susan. You mentioned that there were so many issues that have been raised, and I don't know whether it's all technical advisory or planning commission, but I was curious if the planning commission had like two really big issues that they want the codes to fix.
I don't think, we've had two briefings with the planning commission, and I don't think I've heard them say any specific thing like, we want this issue. That they were mainly wanting us to catch them up with the project so they could comprehend it. So there were more questions about, the nature of the project than there were aspirational statements about it. I think we kind of hoped there'd be more aspirational statements, and maybe there will be at the planning commission meeting that we have scheduled for May. Because they will have had more time to think about it. We gave them in February, which is the last time we went in front of the PC Planning Commission and gave them an update on the project. At that point in time, the consultants had finished the CDC assessment summary report and that appendix A with the long list. So the Planning Commission got that information 2 weeks before the meeting, but it was still a lot of information to absorb. And so I think there's probably still some absorbing going on. And so I have a feeling maybe in May, they will express more aspirations. And I know they're going to be interested to find out about any feedback we got at the open house. In addition to this open house tonight, we also have an online open house, which you can also participate in. And we have, I think, folks picked up the agenda sheet when they did the sign in out front, where it has the address of that open house, or has a QR code that you can look at with your phone. It'll send you right to that open house, and that's another opportunity for you to put comments in. And Bruce, I see you.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the cities in the county are paying attention to this assessment and an update, because I would imagine that having the county's codes kind of blend well into the city's code would be of interest to them, since they will inherit theoretically the unincorporated area as time goes on. So are the cities part of the review process in an active way?
Not really. They're aware that we are doing this. And we also have a technical advisory committee member that works at the city of Beaverton, who was involved in updating of their development code. So, she's providing just more of a technical aspect. So they're aware that this is happening. Some of them are also doing this kind of work. I think Hillsborough is doing something like this as well. I mean, I think a lot of jurisdictions in our region are kind of in the same boat, where they adopted a document 20 or 30 years ago, and there's been a lot of changes of various types over the years, and they're re-looking at their adopted documents to see if they still work or address the situations that they need to address. But it's not as if the cities are trying to all match each other. So
So I did have one last quick question, and it really kind of bounces off of this metro and what are we doing at a bigger point. And with Portland being a city, they probably have their own code, so they don't have to necessarily do what the state is saying.
Well, I'll say
Or
that.
metro,
Well, all of the jurisdictions probably statewide have to adhere to whatever the state says in terms of the new housing rules that have passed recently and that apply to urban areas. That when I say urban areas, they apply to areas within cities and they apply to urban unincorporated areas within counties. So the city of Portland has to comply with those as well.
is there coordination with the county and the other two counties to see if we're all getting buttoned together and coordinated? And I guess where I'm actually going with this in my, my big dream would be like, we hear about vacant buildings in Multnomah County because there's such a high vacancy rate going on with industrial and other things. And I'm trying to figure out, but yet we're paving under farmland out here like crazy, trying to put up housing and roads and all this infrastructure of sewer lines and everything. To me, there's something that's not coordinated. And yes, people want to live where they want to live, but we're also losing a lot of our farm infrastructure because Ag West, just down the road here, that has been here for over 50 years, just closed its doors and laid off its staff. Because there's not enough farmers to keep them in business anymore. And it's been happening. So I guess I'm just kind of trying to figure out, I know this is focused on housing and urban unincorporated, but I think that we have to look at that not only as Washington County, but as a metro area. What are we doing to really preserve our rich soils and these vacant buildings that are sitting there vacant, fully utilize that land?
Yeah. That's not something that this CDC assessment is really.
I know,
addressing.
but I just
I
have to
know.
get it off, because
Yeah.
I've been holding that question.
Yeah, I don't know, this is just speculation, I have no idea, but I'm wondering if some of the, like the Farm Bureau and some of the other sort of, some of the agencies that are above the county level, but that are dealing with like farm issues might be looking at some of this, but that's just a speculation on my part.
Yeah, Farm Bureau in Washington County, there's a membership, but it's just a few. I'll just end with, I mean, Senate Bill 1586 is a wake-up call to everybody, and yeah, it didn't pass. But everybody now is like, we have to speak up and protect what we have, or it's gonna be gone. And so I'm just trying to figure out how do we balance what we need to do for housing and everything, but also preserve that. And are we looking at places where we have all this old dilapidated buildings that can be tore down and rebuilt and enterprise zones and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Idea. One of the things that we pointed out was more housing opportunities in some of the county's commercial and mixed use districts. Maybe really dovetails with what you're observing, and I think a lot of cities around the state are observing right now is we have a lot of commercial buildings and commercial land there's not as much demand for that as there is for housing. Might need to sort of rebalance our regulations a little bit to support more housing in those commercial areas where there's just not needed as much. And so, yeah, that's one way. I think it ties back up to those regional growth management goals is how do we make the most out of our land efficiently. And one of the places I think we're seeing is the commercial mixed use districts are a place that makes sense.
And was that table 3 or slide 3?
Can't remember the number. I think about
Yeah.
it's 6.
It's station 6, yeah.
6, okay,
Good
thank you.
details over there.
All right, Bruce,
This comes from the CCI members. And what's the relationship between state mandates and Washington County's home rule charter? Is the county able or willing to take a different path than the state has mandated based on the charter?
Teresa is gonna take that one.
And this question has been asked, where the state has occupied a topic, they rule. we cannot do something that's less restrictive. We can always be more restrictive, but we can't be less restrictive. We need to follow what the state has prescribed. So the county, just because we are home rule, we don't get to rule over the state law. If they've occupied it, what they say goes.
That's a clear answer. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all, and I'm gonna try to get these screens up in a gentle way so that people can keep looking at the posters. Really appreciate you being here and hope to answer some more questions as you walk around.
So I'll throw out there, if any of you want to take a look at the online open house, if you just go to the primary Washington County website, washingtoncountyor.gov, you'll see right there on the front page about this assessment project, and there'll be a link that you can go in and make your way to the online open house. So if you think about it, late at night in your slippers, you can look at that too.
No, I have not done it yet, so I wanted to use this for marriage. You know, because I'm hearing how stations. Yeah, well, and what I read through was just the documents that they had, that one site, I can't remember if it wasn't, or maybe it was, before you take it, whatever.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. I did actually go through, without doing my assessment, I just looked at the information, how we went. So, and I think that was that. I thought they were doing it for sure, but I'm just saying they're not. I understand that they're not saying there's a process, but I thought it was so, the way it was so open-ended, the way it was described. Like you said, and of course they might say, oh, no, we're.
Okay, CCI members, you probably can't hear me over all of that. Bruce is trying to move to another room so that we can continue the meeting.
Also, that's the balance will be the years. And again, one of the one about. Extra space. You think how seems is students.
Okay.
There we go.
Turn.
Okay, CCI members, you guys can pop in. This is now a CCI meeting.
So, hey, kids, so I could go around and show you each one of the boards, but I don't know if that would really do anything for us. We could.
We're going to request a copy of their slides.
Yeah, Fran, what do you got? You're muted.
I know. Okay. One thing that's really important is to take a snapshot of each of the boards with the stickers on them, because we never get that kind of information back.
Okay, so at the end of, I will say to the bitter end and shoot some pictures of where people put their stickers. There's really just maybe 5 people who are not with the county who are here.
Yeah, that's what happens when they schedule over important meetings, because there are 2 other meetings
like
that are
a
going
CPO
on.
meeting.
Okay. I'll do that later. I'm gonna go out in the hall here. Kind of go hang out here.
Thank you, Bruce, for what you're doing there.
Well, you know, I wish that my camera would pick up the screens. I ran into this problem at the public affairs forum too, is that the camera just doesn't pick up the image of the screen, which I apologize for, but okay. So, hi. Get out of the glare. That's a lot of damn glare. Well, here's Jim right here coming waltzing down. He must have. Well, this is the CCI meeting kind of here now. And I was looking for a place that didn't have a lot of glare, maybe down here. Yeah, this will work. So you want to?
I got my stuff in there.
Okay.
I need to go put some.
We're just going to complain about things here now for a while.
Oh, okay. Fran. Hi, Paul. Hi, Stan. Hi, Jill. Hi, Mary Lou.
So, So how many of y'all saw the work session presentation?
Not me.
It is astounding to me that after 5 years of pretending to modernize the program, that all we have is a kind of vague arm waving plan in which the CPO's leaders are not included explicitly. So it's like, kind of at the end of the end of the rope. Anybody have any? So I don't have any subjects. I don't know. I'm halfway inclined to simply not have any more CCI meetings. Maybe we could have steering committee meetings because we own the Zoom link for that, and we wouldn't be beholding to the county to run the CCI meetings. But I don't. Somebody
I'm
say something.
sorry you're astounded, Bruce. I'm not the least surprised.
Well, yeah.
I
Goodness doesn't always prevail.
Well, couple of things that I think this review of the CDC of the code is something that as a group, this has got the most knowledge. This group right here has the most knowledge about the code of anybody in the entire county. And going through that CDC code, I felt like I was always on the outside. I mean, with the TAC, basically the consultants were just talking at the TAC and never really got any input. And so now that we have this information, it's kind of like the SNRA. Remember, it was the CCI and myself included that got the significant natural resource review and assessment. Remember that? And then we got changes to the code for that. Not everything we wanted, but it was better than it was. I think that if whoever wants to participate on it, and since we have these time slots available, I think that we should dive into this opportunity to pick apart this review and assessment like we did with the SNRA. And Mary, I would like to know what Mary, she said there was something that she thought that they were really wrong on, not just that, she didn't agree, but it was bass backwards or whatever. And I would love to know what that second screen is.
I could go see if she is willing to come down to the other end of the conference center where I am.
Okay.
Or
And
she can just participate on her phone if she's got Zoom on her phone.
well,
and I believe we should be informing the new candidates for these commissioner positions of how we feel, because I know of at least one that's very much interested in hearing from the community before he is or is not elected.
Yeah.
So this is an optimal time to get their attention.
One thing that occurred to me.
I'm going to see if I can get Mary to come.
Okay. One thing that occurred to me is an unintended consequence could be fewer developers trying to annex into cities if Washington County makes its development code more friendly to development. And the county really wants to get rid of all the urban areas, so this could be an unintended consequence.
Actually, Virginia, I feel that the county is doing more and more urbanization. They're allowing for more and more urbanization. And
they are, but their underlying stated goal is to get rid of all the urban unincorporated and have them move into cities.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I see what you mean. But one of the things that I've been arguing for years is that the comprehensive code should have some kind of target percentage. How much of the county should be farmland? How much of the county should be significant natural resource? If they had and how much should be affordable housing, et cetera. That is a clear and objective criteria that makes it so much easier for everybody to build to. And we have not been able to get that done. I don't know how others feel about that, but I think we wouldn't be losing key things if we had stated objective.
Hey, Fran, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure if the percentages would be the right way to go after that. Because, I mean, how do you know what areas in the whole county we want to preserve for natural resources unless we really sit down and go through the maps and figure that out ourselves first?
yeah, whatever the thing is, whether it be a percentage or
Yeah.
these areas or whatever it is, we don't have anything that is a finite picture or an algorithm or whatever. It's always, push comes to shove, and then the developers, I mean, my other two biggies are that mitigation information is not transparent to the public. We have no idea what they're charging in terms of dollars. For all we know, they're going by the 1980s dollar numbers. We don't know what percentage it is of the developers' end number is. Nothing. We have no information.
Yeah,
So
I guess
that's
the percentage,
transparency.
the percentage part makes me a little nervous because who's going to allocate? Okay, well, they're going to say this
Yeah.
percentage is not really
Okay.
land use area. We want to
Yeah,
preserve
whatever
this
makes sense
Yeah.
is
I think
in my
it's,
mind.
something we have to define what we want to preserve first, I think.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so
A lot of
boys and
that
girls,
assumes
I'm
that
going-
the Washington County wants to do planning, and in my experience, mostly they've done reacting.
so I'm thinking, where'd they go? So I'm thinking we could put our own dots on these boards. And so if you guys can read that, can you read it, or is it just?
Nope. Well, let me pin you and see if it's more likely to be read.
It's a little rough.
Go ahead
Okay.
and show it to us again, Bruce. You're pinned.
Can you see that?
About mobile home parks. So it says parks here.
Stop moving it around.
Mobile home park, not a park. And it was, there were several like that.
Are those boards available on the website so that we could put them up as a slide
I
here?
think that's probably part of the online imaging.
I don't know. Somebody would have to go
Let
look
me
at the
check and then
website.
I could see if we could share that, okay?
Okay, just that's not working, is it?
Projects on the ground, they're gonna have, it's gonna have to pencil out. And not that it has to be one.
Is that readable?
It's maybe even be 100% affordable to 80%.
Maybe if you share your screen, would that work?
I'm checking to see if this is online.
Oh.
Me too.
No, while we're doing that, Fran, I'm all with you on that. I just was trying to the percentage part got me a little concerned that we could go down a rat hole if
Yeah, I
percentages
think,
are.
Ken, you have a good point. Just like in 2017, I think it was, the CDC formed a joint committee where a lot of people put together a proposal for a tree ordinance code with very detailed technical information to back it up. We could do the same thing in terms of a recommendation for
Yes.
these targets that should be, as Virginia puts it, so that the county can plan rather than simply react.
Yep.
And maybe put a team together to figure out what those algorithms look like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it'd be great to have a team or the CCI actually take part in that. So while we're still.
Virginia, did you find anything?
No, those particular slides are not part of the online open house. So I think rather than trying to finagle all of this, the best use of your
I
time.
disagree, Virginia. Virginia,
What?
I'm seeing the same slide. So let me see if.
Really?
Yeah, let me send you the link specific page and then
Sure.
Rose, check it out.
So Fran, if you could share.
Just share your screen.
Okay,
Of
let me share.
those, then
Let
I
me
could go
share.
around and put dots on
Okay,
for
let
all
me
you
see if I'm right.
malcontents.
Let me see if I'm right. Where was it?
So there's station 1 through 8.
Right, yeah, wait, hang on a second. Let me find the page again. I had it up on my screen.
Hmm.
Okay, simplifying the code. Okay, so then, okay.
I'm
Bruce,
looking at simplifying the code, but all I see is a bunch of text.
There we go.
Okay, so
We
go
can see
next and
that.
see if there's a station one.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, there is,
Huh.
does that look anything like your?
Yeah, I mean, go hit next. Hit it again. Okay, hit it again. Neighborhood,
So,
yeah, neighborhood meeting
so that's
requirements.
the content of those posters that are on the wall? Good.
You know, the area.
Bruce, are these the?
Road where they built a new high school and that was.
No, we're not. Well, here, leveling the playing field. This is kind of here, leveling the playing field.
Okay, so.
If they wanted to sell the different.
So if I'm taking us down a rat hole, let me just forget it. I just,
So something like St. Mary's or something, yeah.
it just looked a lot like what you're
So,
saying.
Geez. So this one is kind of
We
like
just allow them to do.
there.
Yeah, so it's not
Um,
nefarious that they.
and
If it was stated clearly. It can be.
good similar this is a hard translation.
Okay, then
Building
Then we can
facade
abandon it.
standards, neighborhood meeting requirements. Should neighborhood meeting requirements be based on project impacts? That seems like a yes.
Why don't you just go ahead and take phone photos of each of those posters and we can send them to people and they can use them in conjunction with the online. This is too chaotic. I really don't think that we can put stickers on those posters. Take pictures of them and then we can encourage all of our people to take the online thing and they can look at the pictures.
Okay, so we do have a damn steering committee meeting tomorrow at 11. I will take pictures of the boards. I'll send them to everybody. And we really need to decide just how much good is having a CCI meeting going to do. Because
my personal opinion is we should keep on till the bloody end and keep doing what we're doing until they drag us off with the shepherd's hook.
There you go.
That's my opinion. I mean, I'm not the one that has to run the meeting, although
you're putting a stronger vote in keeping this beast going than I am.
Well, I think
should we put it to a should we put it
just for us to continue a conversation about how we can continue to serve our neighborhoods.
Okay, so here's the deal. Do we want to have CCI meetings on Tuesday, or do we want to do all of this in the steering committee on Wednesday?
No, I think we should just continue to meet on Tuesdays and forget about the planning commission because
The steering committee,
forget about the planning commission.
I'm okay, even though they might have good, we are never going to get LUT to come and give us a presentation that they've already given to the planning commission.
Well, people can watch the planning commission meetings.
Exactly.
Right.
So I tried to get a closer connection between the CCI, this group, and the planning commission, but it was obstructed by OAO.
Could I ask that we put it to a vote of the people that are participating?
Sure.
Whether they want to continue or not?
Hell yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
make sense?
I move that we continue to meet on our, whatever, third Tuesdays, as long as we're able, and that we continue our conversation about serving our neighborhood.
I second the motion. Then we need to have discussion.
Well,
I think
I'm,
Mary Lou was
so
raised
yeah,
her
so,
hand.
so this is not an official vote. There's determination to keep doing it on Tuesdays in the absence of having a chat so we can actually exchange useful information.
That's a good
They
point.
made me the host of this meeting, so I think
Well,
they're sort of abandoning their oversight, which would be nice.
well, but it's still, the meeting is not set up to have a chat.
Correct, but maybe we can get them to
Maybe not.
lose that.
No,
Well,
no, I mean,
because of the public meeting law.
Mary and I both have been taken to task by OAO for various little baby things.
Yeah, you've had your fingers slapped.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question, Bruce. Bruce, and you know the answer to this. Okay. My understanding is that the CCI is officially, no, CPO meetings are officially ended.
Done.
And the
Done.
CCI is allowed to continue until the fall. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Until September.
Okay, but then the CCI would be under public meetings law if we use
Correct.
this forum.
Well, we are
Correct.
under public meeting laws, although OAO has not been giving us any minutes, as the service level agreement said.
Yeah. Okay, so
But,
then the question is, I think the only delta is the fact that this vehicle that we're using right now does not allow us to chat. So it's
Right.
not.
We could easily set up a group chat on Messenger. Bruce and I have been talking all evening. If everybody submits their message phone number, we can set up a group message chat.
Yeah, we could. So, my sense is that come September, there will be no CCI, and I will be surprised if there is a public facing component to the Planning Commission taking over the CCI chore. And when you think about it, the amount of hassle that the county goes through by having a conduit for people to gather and present issues, it would be really easy to just get rid of all of that by not providing a venue for people to make any comments, and certainly not let them gather themselves. So I just cannot imagine that that this group is going to be in any way intact come September.
No, I understand that. My question is, we have, I think one of the things that like Jill and others were talking about is what can we do to continue as a community engagement, informal or not? And a lot of times we will, various organizations, for instance, will put together a letter such as the one that I think Jim had proposed here for this meeting. And then we allow the public to sign on to that letter. So it may not come from just the CCI members. It may be a letter that we've constructed and then put open to the public in Washington County for people to sign on, until they might see 1,000 signatures.
Sure. So that is not going to be supported in any way, shape, or form by Washington County.
Right.
That's why I keep suggesting we use the steering committee, which we control the nature of the Zoom meetings, and we can advertise to whoever we want to if you are interested in any kind of land use thing, here's what we're going to talk about this month.
But it won't go out to the whole list.
Okay.
Say what?
So Bruce is suggesting we use that portal.
The invitations to that meeting will not go out to the whole list.
Which list?
The list that the county controls that has CCI people on it.
But we just got a full list recently. I have a full list that I could purposely put everybody's name on it instead of just saying CCI leaders.
So again, the steering committee meeting link is listed on the county website.
Okay.
And we
So,
have the email list for the CCI leaders of today.
well, and I have the spreadsheet of all the current CPO and CCI members. So we have that. What we don't have is a broader expanse of the public, but they tend to not be capable of paying attention long enough to make any substantial contribution.
Not at this point.
Well, I mean, historically,
well,
we all
I
know
think-
how piss poor attendance is in somebody that doesn't have a dog in a fight.
Well, we had about 25 people at our candidate forum.
Well, it's a candidate
members of the
forum, but
public.
that's not just
I know.
land use.
Well, I know.
We're rehashing this thing. So you get my point that
Okay.
if we
Well,
wanted
I could modify my motion, but it needs to be an evening meeting.
okay. So if we had an evening meeting, we could decide whether we wanted to dial into the planning commission to hear their stuff and then decide if we wanted to convene afterwards. I mean, it is
I would just be bored to tears having to sit through a planning commission meeting.
Are you
personally.
kidding? And you haven't been to many planning commission meetings then?
They haven't had any.
No.
Yeah, we have. They had
A lot of them gotten canceled, I think.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
But
So,
I think what
if-
Bruce is saying is if the planning commission has a topic that we think is of concern, then it would make sense for us to dial into that. If they don't have anything or they're canceled, then we would use the time for a different. So we're figuring out the logistics of how do we continue in an effective way. And what I'm hearing is one is use the steering committee's portal because it has less restrictions.
Yeah.
Two is we would make it on an evening that is consistent with the planning commission meetings. If there is a topic of substance, then we would dial into that. And if not, then we would just talk about other things, or maybe not have a meeting if there's nothing critical for us to discuss.
That's a
Does
good
that
idea.
make sense?
Yeah.
And we would use
What happened to Mary?
I think she was born that way.
No,
she's probably
no,
putting
I
on
mean, wasn't
stickers.
she gonna come?
She was arm wrestling with somebody in the room.
You should have gotten video of that.
Eh.
Now, I have another
Anyway.
question. I had put out a note to all the CPO leaders about their distribution lists because not everybody, some people do have an email list and some do not. And I was, putting out a quick flyer about tree keepers because we certainly will continue to fight the fight about trees and SNR.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if there's a show of hands of people in the CCI who do have distribution lists.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have any lists.
I actually have a list from 2023 of all of the CPO members who agreed to be contacted by the CPO leaders.
I have
And
an
there's-
email list and we also have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we have enough vehicles for outreach that we can capture the attention of interested people. I mean, just the reality is there aren't that many interested people until the road goes to be built in front of their house and then they're out shooting their guns in the air.
Except that the CDC review may be that opportunity where things are going to be shaking up right in front of their house and they can get in front of it before the code is changed.
Yeah, but that's a long shot. I mean, being
But-
able to,
okay.
but you're right.
I'm just saying that, according to the plan our flow chart, the place for the community to get involved is in that planning stage, not necessarily at the plan implementation stage, which is an incorrect assumption, but that's what's true. So during the CDC review, that is the code stage where the public, we need to get the public aware that they need to be engaged in this next year.
So we might have one more opportunity to contact everybody on the CPO mailing list I think regarding the April 24th all CPO meeting, whatever the agenda is for that, um, um, I sort of shudder to think what the agenda of the April 24th meeting will be, but you know, it's so
yeah,
so I would like to what I'm thinking is if we had a list of all of the volunteer opportunities, which included both land use and non-land use, like get involved with your library. You know, the CPO is going away. It provided people a context and a venue for interacting with their community. What ways to interact with your community are going to be left in the absence of the CPO? And, you know, and everybody should have a library card. We should encourage people to go and get a library card and become library volunteers. Tree keeper volunteers. I mean, a list of all the ways that you can be an activist by volunteering your time would be a very useful thing to send out to the CPO list. And it's not going away. I mean, who knows what the county is going to do with that list of people? Because I assume that you just feed this whole data set of everybody and sort it by what commissioner district you're in, and they have that many people that they can contact per commissioner district. But I don't know. It is so incredibly frustrating for us to be so involved and to have thoughts and to be completely ignored as to any input or thinking. I mean, I'm just astounded, Virginia, that it has collapsed like this. So see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock and we'll go from there.
if other people have some voices about where we go from here and the kind of the plan, anybody got any ideas about what we could or should be doing?
Well, I'm sorry, I keep popping over to the kitchen to make dinner. I still think that a separate nonprofit is the ultimate goal, but I'm not volunteering.
Mary Lou.
Hey, hello.
Well, yeah, I suggest that we still try to meet on Tuesdays. You know, just it because it's a comfortable, familiar time slot that we're all used to, you know. What is this, the third Thursday or the third Tuesday of the month?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people have normally blocked 7 o'clock off on the
We
third.
could call it the steering committee.
Whatever. I mean, it's a good time because it's evening and, you
Yeah,
know.
but we don't control the
No, we could call it the steering committee and run it through your account.
Yeah, change the
Okay.
steering committee date, time of meeting. to
Okay, you
be-
guys wrestle this around. I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave and you figure it out.
Okay, so
We'll let you know.
yeah, Mary Lou and Virginia have an idea. Why don't we just ask the steering committee, Paul, change their time and day to being Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Would that work for what we're trying to do
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Paul,
I
what do you
like
think?
habits. I like habits.
Right. Well,
I-
like the SNR committee is just continuing on Jim's Zoom account on the second Tuesday of the month at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but
And
I want to hear Paul's statement about, because he's on the steering committee. How would you feel about moving the steering committee to Tuesdays at 7? And
Paul?
making it an open meeting?
You're muted.
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay. And so,
that
so just
seems-
call it a
that
different
seems
name.
like a really good solution. Thank you, Mary Lou.
it just seems like, you know, people wouldn't have to try to figure out if there's a different day or a different time or whatever. And if worse comes to worse, you just use a private account. You know, it's just an
Well, that's what
unofficial.
Bruce has been using his private account to
Right.
run the steering committee.
And we
That's the
also,
same thing
I
that
also,
Jim does. Same thing Jim does on Tuesdays.
right. But
Yep.
also, I provide space on a shared drive for the CCI notes and everything else, so we could call that CCI steering notes. And then again, like for instance, one of the things we're doing is Nancy Fletcher and Mary Lou have been accumulating information, data, where there have been errors by LUT in the development when they have a condition of approval. They've actually found errors and actually malfeasance. And so we need to compile that because that is more ammunition for the statement of why the public needs to be involved in the plan implementation, that last box in our flow chart, because that's where these things are caught. If we're not involved, then we wouldn't even know about these major errors that have been happening recently. And so we're going to be compiling a letter to the higher ups about this problem. So please, on our CCI shared drive, there is a place a folder. I'll put it out to the CCI leaders.
So we haven't heard from Stan and Jill or even Ken specifically on this, or Josie, on this proposal that we move the steering committee. I guess I should amend my amendment.
Motion. Yeah, your motion.
Yeah, my motion. God, my brain. To say that we want to. Okay, I'll start fresh. I move that we move the steering committee meeting time to the third Tuesday and use Bruce's account to meet together. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay. Now we can have a discussion about it, or we can vote. Dan, how do you feel?
Well, I almost want to move our meetings to the steering committee day and time, just because I think it's if it's reinstated in September or whatever, then we're not having to move the steering committee meeting back to, Wednesdays or whatever.
You think it's going to be reinstated?
Well, there's an application process. No, honestly, there's an application process that has to be fulfilled, and it's going to be similar to what is occurring. It may not be any of us, but but that's.
But see, it's Bruce's Zoom thing. It's
Yeah,
not
so
the county's.
Yeah, the application process for the 4 representatives is for the CPO organization, not the CCI. That's my understanding.
I think it's going
We
to be
just
both.
don't know what they've got in
I
mind.
think it's going to be both. I think
that's
that's
my
what it
point.
is. You want my opinion? That's what I think it's going to be.
Yeah,
It's
no,
going to
no,
be an
you're right.
application process for everybody. So if that's the case, then that is what I really believe it's going to be. I don't think
Okay, no,
I don't
that's
think
fair
any
enough.
of us have a chance to run our own CCI. I think we're going to be more of a external group that's going to be demanding things as we see it because of our experience, instead of being dictated by the county as to what the county wants. That's going to be the difference.
Yeah, thanks for your input, Stan. That's very helpful.
Jill?
Yeah, I'm just, I also support the fact that, we become independent of the county. So, that's how I'm leaning toward.
Well, and that's the kind of thing that we could continue to discuss if we continue to meet. Is it time to call the question? I call the question. Please raise your hand or raise your hand if you want to continue the steering committee meetings at our traditional CCI time. Okay, we have, I can't see if Paul's raising his hand. I guess he is. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Looks like we got 6.
And community engagement, I'm not sure if he's even there, and Stannis is not putting. Okay, so I'll report that to Bruce. And,
and this may just be an interim measure for the time being, but
Yeah,
definitely.
The fact that we at least get together and discuss open issues is better than nothing, so.
I agree.
Exactly.
and we get a cross-county picture. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the last thing we want to do is lose touch with each other in the meanwhile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things are gonna change in September, right? But we don't know that, what's gonna happen, so we just kind of should keep focusing and do what we
In
can.
essence, we're sort of forming a forum for ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Open
Okay.
discussion. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Adios.
Okay. Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
I need to finish fixing dinner. Oh, it looks like community engagement has persisted. That's I think his
I've been
name
here
is
the
Willie.
whole time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
are you going to report back?
Well, my understanding is I'm to let you guys do your thing and just make sure that video and communication continues. However, we've reached the time limit for tonight, so
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Willie.
you guys have
And
a
I'll be
good
back
night.
in the mainland soon on your time zone.